Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with flat rates for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. When they ask you, how did you hear about Podgo? You make sure to tell them the Mason sent you. The Mason from Captain's Log. Tell him Captain's Log sent you. Send it from us, Captain's Log, Podgo, and Captain's Log.
Have either of you experienced any blackouts, stretches of time you can't account for? I roam for eternity, said the dead.
Yeah, you're gonna love this one. It's a scream, baby. Do not open this door. What's the matter with you people? I was joking. Don't you know it's a joke when you hear one?
Start date 10/19/2021. Welcome back, everybody, to another spooky episode of Captain's Log. This is your Captain Jose Valle Jr., joined virtually by my co-host and first officer, Detective Mason Schrader. What's new, Mason?
Oh. You know that song?
O'Reilly's? Is that the O'Reilly's?
No, that's like the boy band. They're like,
Oh, yeah.
oh.
Yeah,
That's how I'm feeling.
the Big Time Rush one.
I'm sure it's one of them.
Yeah.
I was more of an NSYNC kid.
Wow. It's fascinating.
They were the only boy band when I was a child.
See, I guess...
Big
yeah,
Time Rush, I was in high school when they happened.
Oh, were you?
I don't know. Maybe not. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, no, you were, because I always think of us when we were kids that you were just always in high school, as throughout my entire childhood. And then we somehow aligned
true.
in college, yeah.
I was born a high schooler. I didn't do anything until you met me. I didn't exist until you met me.
Well, that's how everyone in my life is, so that makes
When
sense.
you turn the podcast off after we finish, I just sit here like a robot, powered down, and just stare. And then when you send the invites, I'm like, oh, and then I just we do the podcast.
Right, that's what I assume happens with everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad to know that that's true. Yeah. I feel like I'm living in a sitcom in this place, because one of my neighbors has parakeets. Parakeets?
Parakeets. I got a pair of keys.
And one day I was outside walking the pod dog Zuko, and he came out and he like pulled up in his car. He comes out of the car and he's just got two parakeets on his fucking shoulders, and he's walking into the building, and I was like, oh shit, they're gonna fly away. No, they were just there. And he like put his key in, opened the door, and he like looks at me, and I was just like in fucking awe at this man. And he just goes like, he just does the head tilt. And I was like, hey. And he went inside.
No.
And I was
No.
like, what the fuck?
No, fuck that guy. No, absolutely. You don't get to do that. You don't get to be casual with two fucking birds on your shoulders like other people should just be like,
Yeah,
cool
like I
to
should
the
have been
fact
like,
that you've got birds on your
right,
shoulders.
yeah.
Yeah, no, fuck that guy. That's no.
It's fucking crazy.
Fuck him.
Yeah.
What a piece of shit. Kill his birds.
I'm going to get Pod Dog to do it. I'm going to get Zuko to do it.
Hell yeah.
Sick him on his birds.
Yeah.
Well, Mason, today we are continuing our spooky little journey to Halloween with an episode devoted entirely.
Classic, dude.
How the
Absolute.
How did he get them?
Classic.
Hang on.
Pod Dog's a wizard, man.
They were up on wow, okay.
Got one of those, like, you know when like the inside of your nose gets dried out
Yeah.
and it constantly feels like it's getting cut open every time your nose moves a little bit?
Yeah.
I got that going on and I hate it.
I just do cocaine and it usually stops it.
It feels like it's bleeding, but it's not. It's just,
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. Ugh, that's the worst.
It's just like chapped and busted.
Yeah. Get some cum in there. Just shoot
I
a
thought
load,
about
and it
trying to
will-
put a little bit of chapstick on it, but I feel like it would be logistically. I think it'd be a nightmare.
Just cum. Cum will really solve that for you.
Yeah. Can we do the podcast now?
Yeah. So we are going to be talking about murders that all took place on Halloween night, which is pretty self-explanatory, right? Now, Detective Schrader, are you ready to take a look at these case files?
I'm getting too old for this shit.
All right. Yes, I'm coming in. I've got my white shirt rolled up to the elbows. I've got a big I got a box with a bunch of files in them.
I got one of those gun holsters that's like under your armpit. Yeah.
And then I'm slamming them down on the table in front of you, and I'm like, and then we're getting into them.
Yeah, we're slapping our desk. We're doing the Captain's Log special where you slap your desk and make it ring.
Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Cheyenne, every time when I tell her, Jose and I are doing another episode today, she's like, "God damn it, Mason. The city's up my ass."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And she's like, I don't know either. But then she drinks Pepto-Bismol and goes and takes a bath. So,
yeah, that classic police chief thing.
I'm getting too old for this shit.
Yes. Let's dive in.
Yay.
Halloween, the modern-day descendant of All Hallows Eve, or Samhain.
I don't think that's that.
That's true. That's how you pronounce it.
That's pronounced Sam Hain.
Nope. Look it up. It's Celtic.
Don't tell me what to do.
What began with the Celts as a festival surrounding the weakening of the boundary between the mortal world and the spirit world, where practitioners would dress up in costume to celebrate, has now become a holiday devoted to capitalism, gluttony, and the fascination with fear. Fear is exactly what was at the center of an unsolved slaying that took place on October 31st, 1981. Ronald Sisman, 39, had invited his girlfriend, 20-year-old Elizabeth Platzman. Yeah, gross, right?
Fucking sis.
Yeah. Over to his apartment in Greenwich Village for a photo shoot. Sisman was a prolific photographer.
No, I love it. Do your weird true crime narrator voice. I like it.
Who had operated 2 photography businesses out of his apartment. That night, the couple had been enjoying...
Sounds pretty prolific and definitely like a professional and not like a creepy weirdo.
Not like every photographer from the 70s that nowadays, but like we revere them and we're like, yeah, they were a little troubled, but they were really artistic in their nude photography of these highly incorrigible young women and that were 18 years old trying to break into the industry. And I'm like, no, they were just a pervert, I think.
Is that a butthole?
Yeah.
That's a butthole. That's not art. That's a butthole.
And now they're like 60 and 70-year-old men, and all these allegations are coming out, and everyone's like, whoa, maybe they were perverts. It's like, yeah, I think so. Anyway, I went into a rabbit hole the other day about a specific photographer who did that. I can't remember his name.
Adams.
No.
Ansel Adams?
No, he was just shooting landscapes.
He's the only photographer I know.
Yeah, he's very good, though. No, it was like this guy. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to give that guy any fucking
Stanley
publicity.
Kubrick.
Yeah, that's him. That night, the couple had been enjoying wine when it is believed a group of masked individuals knocked on the door. It seems that Sisman must have known them because there was no sign of forced entry found.
Was it Halloween?
It was Halloween.
Did he just maybe open
Could
the
also
door to
be
give
that.
him candy?
But I don't know if maybe like his apartment... That's the 80s. I don't know if maybe like you needed to be buzzed in, so...
I'm just saying, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
I also thought the same thing, where I was like, well, maybe they
Right.
were just trick-or-treaters, but...
Yeah.
After letting the masked individuals in, the couple was severely tortured and beaten, before being shot in the back of the head execution style. The apartment was found by authorities completely ransacked, furniture had been ripped apart, and other items torn. But strangely enough, nothing other than the identification of the two and a .25 caliber handgun owned by Sisman was taken. The police could find no real possible motive, and then an informant called them with a strange tale. He told them that someone he knew had predicted the murders weeks prior. This mysterious fortune teller? None other than the son of Sam himself, David Berkowitz. The informant told the police that a couple of weeks before the murder, Berkowitz had told him that his cult was going to torture and perform a ritual killing on Halloween. He described it as a photographer's residence near Greenwich Village, where after the ritual they would kill the occupants and clean the residence of any incriminating evidence against the cult. Berkowitz elaborated that Sisman had a snuff video of one of the Son of Sam killings, the last one, in fact, the killing of Stacy Moskowitz, that it would shed light on the cult and make people rethink that Berkowitz acted alone. Reportedly, Sisman had been hired by the cult to record a video, but they hadn't told him what the film was about beforehand. So after it was finished, Sisman didn't seem happy at what he had been a part of. The cult had heard rumors that Sisman was in trouble for dealing drugs and that he might use the video as leverage to get a deal. When the authorities contacted Berkowitz, he was able to give a very accurate description of Sisman's residence. Those closest to Sisman claimed he had never met Berkowitz and wasn't involved in a satanic cult, but some investigators still think that this is the closest lead they ever got to solving the still unsolved case. And this is where it gets crazy, right? So I found, this killing is still unsolved, and there's this theory that perhaps it was tied to the Son of Sam killings because some believe that the Son of Sam, David Berkowitz, didn't act alone and was actually part of a larger satanic cult that he was a puppet of, basically, that carried out these killings. And at first I was like, whatever, okay. Maybe Berkowitz was just lying to try to get off of, the sentence and be like, look, I didn't do these by myself. There was other people, right?
Who, that serial killer? I don't think he'd do it.
And then it gets real weird. Okay, so then, so the reason that one of the first things that came up when this murder happened was the police believed that Sisman was killed by a dealer who he owed money to, or was killed because of his involvement in, maybe like it was drug related, and the person who had killed them was looking for drugs, and that's why the apartment was ransacked. The reason they believed
no
this,
money taken away,
right? The reason they believed this though was because a couple of years earlier, Sisman had been he'd been accused of by this actress named Melanie Haller.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, Melanie
That was
Haller.
the cartoon name, Maloney Haller.
Or Melanie, sorry, Melanie. It's
God,
spelled weird. It's spelled like a weird Melanie, though. I think it might be Melanie, it might be Maloney. I think it's Melanie. So Melanie Haller said that
I'm going to call her Maloney Haller.
that she was forced to partake that Sisman had tried to force her to take some drugs once, and she had accused him of this, right? Of like assault. He was eventually cleared because she would not corroborate further with authorities, and so it was dropped. But then this is where the connection to Berkowitz and this cult could potentially come about, right? With a man named Roy Radin. He was a millionaire producer.
Sure.
So
just real quick, we've got Maloney Haller and Roy Radin.
Yeah. So
okay. Sure. Seems like these are not made up names.
And this came about in this docuseries where Michael Zuckerman, a former reporter at Gannett Newspapers, explained that he had received a letter from this informant, right, who had informed the police. His name was Vinny. And he had served time with Berkowitz, and he claimed to know about the cult that Berkowitz was a part of. So according to Vinny, the murder of Stacy Moskowitz, the last victim of the Son of Sam shootings, it wasn't just a random act of violence, it was orchestrated as a snuff film. And allegedly a man named Ron Sisman, who was killed, as we know, operated the camera. The murders were unsolved, but Vinny connected Sisman with a wealthy man in Long Island who he referred to only as RR. And he was this mysterious figure who had a penchant for strange videos. So then this guy Zuckerman and this investigator Terry, they immediately thought of Roy Radin, who was a millionaire producer who lived in a 72-room Long Island mansion, and he had this reputation for throwing drug-fueled sex parties, where at one of them, Melanie Haller said that she was brutally raped and beaten after refusing to participate in an orgy. She said that the incident was filmed, and that's what piqued one of the investigators' interest, Terry, because he connected it back to the Sisman murder because Roy Radin was known to be into weird fucking films, one of which might have been the raping of this woman, who also then accused Sisman of trying to force her to take drugs. I think the claim against Roy Radin was also dropped, though, because she wouldn't corroborate with authorities as well in that case. But if there was a connection, Roy Radin was later tied to have been a part of this large satanic cult, which then people believe that Berkowitz was also part of. He was found dead in Dry Creek, California at the age of 33, Roy Radin, after having gone missing for a month, and a Bible was found near Radin's body that some belief was proof of the cult activities. I think eventually 4 people were arrested.
Who believes that a Bible being found near the body is proof of a satanic cult?
One of these investigators, Terry.
And that's not enough proof. That's not proof. It's
Maury Terry.
Suspicious at best.
Well, anyway, so it's a weird connection, right? But at the very least, we do know that Berkowitz did shed some insight in quotations to this case.
The CEO of Frito-Lay was involved in the murder of Mason Schrader because upon the discovery of his body, he had 6 bags of Cheetos near him.
Yeah.
So, suspicious?
Indeed.
Or was he just a weirdo who liked Cheetos?
No, sir. Could not be possible.
That was very, very interesting. Now do the part where you say, but there's no evidence for to back any.
Well, so Roy Radin it was discovered that he was murdered in connection to the production of a Francis Ford Coppola film by 4 men over like budgetary shit or whatever. I don't think it was ever tied to Francis Ford Coppola, but these 4 men murdered him. But there was also doubt about whether or not why these 4, like if the connection was to the film or indeed to something else. But there is no conclusive evidence that Berkowitz was involved in this cult. But it is a theory that has been floating around for a couple of years that maybe could eventually get some traction with further evidence. But
kind of fun, but it seemed a little sketchy. I'll be honest.
Well, definitely though, Ronald Sisman and Elizabeth Platzman were murdered on October 31st, and it still remains unsolved to this day.
Did anyone ever say Mahomie was full of baloney?
No. On Halloween night in 19...
Well, that's good. We shouldn't, because we should
believe the victims. Yeah. On Halloween night in 1957, Los Angeles hairstylist Peter Fabiano walked down the stairs of...
So, when you wrote this episode, were you like, I'm going to put as many cartoon names in here as possible?
No, these people just happen to have cartoon names.
Because we've already had God of Thunder, Lord Raiden.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me that Peter Fabiano, which is very close to just Fabio, and you're just gonna...
Yeah, I mean, these are real names of... These are all real people and real murders.
It's just so I know a good amount of people, I'd say. They all have, like, names that are, like, not weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it's just weird that, like, has anyone done a study about people who were involved with murders on Halloween night? Do they have to have weird names?
It seems like it. Captain's Log has done that study, and I've come to the conclusion that, yeah, you do.
There you go. Print that in your books. College.
Yeah.
Citation. Citation this dick while you're at it.
Ooh, got him.
People's champ. Fuck the establishment.
On Halloween night in 1957, Los Angeles hairstylist Peter Fabiano walked down the stairs of his home to answer the door. Despite the fact that it was late, he thought one last trick-or-treater had come. The 35-year-old grabbed the bowl of candy as he prepared to greet his guest. As he opened the door, a loud pop rang out that awoke his wife Betty and their daughter Judy. When Betty came downstairs, she found her husband in a pool of blood. A bullet lodged right below his heart. She ran to her police officer neighbor, and he called in the cavalry. By the time Peter was taken to the hospital, he was already dead.
Well, to be fair, it would have taken a long time because they rode horses.
And so police...
That's a cavalry joke.
Very good. Very good. And so police began their search to try and identify his killer. They at first thought that it was reminiscent of gang assassinations, but Peter had no organized crime connections. And then Betty shed some light on the whole case.
She gave a lot of bad haircuts to a lot of bad men.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, you've read this one.
Oh, you've heard. Yeah.
She revealed that she could think of one person who might have motive to kill her husband, a woman named Joan Rabel. Rabel was a 40-year-old photographer who had been hired by Peter to work in one of his salons. She became quite close with the couple, so close in fact that when the couple had marriage problems, Betty moved in with Joan, and the two quickly started a romantic relationship. Eventually, Betty decided her marriage with Peter was worth saving and went back to him, telling Peter of her affair with Joan. Peter made her...
crazy.
Yeah.
Okay,
right?
so they had trouble with their marriage, and Joan moved in.
No, Betty moved in with Joan.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought Joan moved in with the married couple, and I was like, what the fuck?
It is Hollywood in the 50s, so...
Okay, but so she moved in with Joan, they hooked up a few times, and then she was like...
No, she moved
"Actually-"
in with Joan, and they started a romantic relationship. They were like...
Right, they hooked up a few times. That's what I meant. It just meant
They were like
casual
dating,
play.
basically, yeah.
Yeah, they hooked up a few times. I don't know why you're being weird about this.
Well, because like hooked up a few times is like casual to me. They were
Well,
in a
she went,
relationship.
but she
Yeah.
didn't. She wasn't married to her.
No, she wasn't married to her, but they had
She
started a
was
romantic
indeed
relationship.
married to somebody else at
Yeah,
the time.
yes,
I think that
yes.
implies it wasn't much more than a kind of casual. She decided to go back to her husband.
Yeah.
They couldn't
But it
have
was
been
also
that
the
serious.
50s.
Nobody gets
it
that
was the
serious in a
50s though.
relationship and then is like, I'm gonna go back to my husband.
Abusive relationships. She could have been like, I'm so scared of not being with my husband, I have to go back. Have you seen The Great Gatsby? Have you read the book? She loved Jay. Well, actually, no, she didn't. I think
ever
Daisy Buchanan is the bad guy in The Great Gatsby.
Take that
Fight me.
fucking tone with me ever again. If you ever say something to me in the tone of, have you heard of this? Ever again, I'm leaving the podcast immediately. Do you understand me?
I
Don't you
understand.
fucking ever take that
I
tone with
understand.
me.
I understand. I'm sorry. She told Peter of her affair with Joan, right? And Peter made her promise to cut off Joan completely, which in turn angered Joan. Soon after this whole ordeal, Joan had met a secretary named Goldine Pizer, who she quickly seduced.
Fuck off, Jose. Goldine Pizer?
Yeah.
God damn it. Okay, what did fucking Goldine Pizer do?
So she was seduced by Joan, and Joan told Pizer of evil Peter Fabiano, and soon convinced her to carry out the crime. The two borrowed a car from a friend and drove to the Fabiano residence, where they waited for all the lights in the home to go off. And Pizer got out of the car in heavy makeup and a domino mask, which is like the little mask that Robin wears. Robin,
Oh.
as in Robin and Batman.
Isn't Batman and Robin?
No, we talked about this
No
last
one-
time.
no
I
one has
believe
ever
it's
been
Robin and
like-
Batman.
No one's ever been like Robin and Batman are here
I
to
have.
save the day. Thank God that 12-year-old and his 40-year-old sidekick is here.
Yes. So she got out wearing a domino mask, heavy makeup, and a brown paper bag in her hand and approached the front door. When Peter opened the door, he said,
Don't you think it's a little late for this?
Pizer raised the brown bag and replied with a cold no.
No.
Yep, just like that. As she then pulled the trigger of the gun inside the bag. Pizer then ran back to the car where Rabel kissed her before saying, "Thank you." The two drove away and returned the car to the friend, and Rabel then told Pizer to forget that she knew her, that she ever knew her. And the two, and eventually, they were found out or whatever, and the two were ultimately sentenced to 5 years to life, but were later released. At the time, the authorities believed their homosexuality may have played a part in the murders, effectively treating it as a mental disorder. Because, the 50s. Which is very funny because when they were reporting it at the time, I read that the newspapers reported Betty and Joan's relationship as, what was it? As an abnormal relationship, which was their way of being like,
They were
rubbing muffs, if you know what I mean.
They were really good gal pals.
Yeah. And then Betty Fabiano was never implicated in the murder at all, so she had no connection to this happening whatsoever.
You say that, the way you said that made
it seem
more
like maybe
suspicious.
that she did, yeah, but there was no.
okay.
Yeah. It seems that she
fucking
was in the
crazy.
dark.
So she brainwashed this poor
This woman, yeah.
secretary woman to murder a guy?
Because she made the secretary fall in love with her. She
And
was a
also-
toxic e-boy before toxic e-boys. No,
This
toxic indie
poor-
boy, sorry.
This poor fucking guy who,
Yeah.
as far as I can tell, didn't really do anything wrong.
Yeah, it seems like I don't know what their marriage trouble was, but it didn't seem like he was abusive or anything.
If at worst he was like, hey, no more cheating on me with your friend, that's fine.
Yeah, he could have
Honestly,
been
yeah.
aggressive towards Joan after he found out, but he was just like, "Hey, I get it. Just don't do that, okay?"
Do you think Betty was like, I slept with Joan, and he was like, hot.
Oh yeah, it's
All
the
right.
50s, almost certainly,
Well,
right?
don't do it again. I'll be in the den
Yeah,
thinking about.
thinking about you and that woman, and then he's in the den like, "Wow, that's hot."
Hot. Ooh wee mama.
Yeah. Because again,
Wowzers.
we're
You
not.
think you just
This
said,
is
like,
our
we-
character of a 1950s man who fetishizes bisexual women, not us doing that. Right? We have to clarify that, right?
I thought it was obvious, but I guess
Okay,
we
good,
can.
good. I don't know.
Bazoing. Hot
Zooey mama.
tamales.
That's hot, he said.
Just sitting there.
Just with a scotch
Like
in
a
hand.
martini glass?
Yeah, with a martini glass. Yeah, he's not a scotch drinker. With a martini glass just staring at the fire.
Just shaking his head.
Yeah. Wow.
Hot.
That's
Hot,
hot.
hot, hot.
I wonder. No. Perhaps. No, I shouldn't. Honey, will you get in here real quick? I've
Honey,
got a
don't
proposition.
bother me. I'm gonna masturbate.
And while they were being sentenced, Pizer was like incredibly regretful of everything that happened, and she just said that she really believed that this man was evil, and she believed that he had hurt Joan, and that she needed to do it to please Joan. And then the whole time, Joan just had a cold, unsettling smile, as it was reported, on her face throughout the entire ordeal. She never spoke, never seemed regretful, and just had a little.
Yeah, almost like a. That was hot.
Yeah, by all accounts, that is what she thought.
I love that the person she was in love with went back to her husband, and she found someone who would literally kill for her and could give less of a shit. You know?
Yeah. Crazy. Anyway, on Halloween night, 1975.
Do all of these start with on Halloween night? Because
You know what?
it's getting a little redundant.
I think they might have I might have accidentally done it, and then at the end of it, I was like, "Oh no, I shouldn't have done that," because I stated at the top that they all happen on Halloween. But
I'm sorry.
now we have to sit through this.
What night did this take place on again?
On Easter night,
Ah,
on Halloween night, 1975, 15-year-old Martha Moxley. Yeah, man, they all have weird names, huh?
this one's
Wow.
also. It's like this was like one of.
This sounds like a
Bazooka
Stan Lee
Joe's
character.
gang. Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
one's good too.
Yeah, Reed Richards, Peter Parker, Susan Storm,
Martha Moxley.
Bruce Banner, Martha Moxley.
The Incredible Adventures of Little Martha Moxley.
Yeah.
Moxley.
Moxley.
The incredulous Moxie of Martha Moxley.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Anyway, let's get to her murder.
The
So-
misadventures of
Martha Moxley.
of Mojo-less Moxie girl Martha, the manimal Moxley.
The Misadventures of Mousely Martha Moxley.
I like Moxie. The
Moxley.
incredulous Moxie of.
Yeah, there you go. So 15-year-old Martha Moxley left her home to join her friends in a night of mischief. Moxley lived in a safe, gated community in Greenwich, Connecticut. She had last seen...
So this is a different Greenwich.
Greenwich,
than
yeah, because there's
the other?
Greenwich
Okay.
Village and then Greenwich. Anyway.
I don't fucking know. I live
Rich
in
people
Iowa.
shit. Yeah, don't worry about it. She had last been seen by her friends talking to 17-year-old Thomas Skakel, a cousin of the Kennedys, being related to the widow of Robert F. Kennedy, Ethel Skakel Kennedy. She was
Sure.
last seen near the Skakel pool house with Thomas.
Sure.
The next day, Moxley's body was found in front of her own home by her childhood friend, Sheila McGuire. Moxley had been bludgeoned by a 6-iron golf club and then stabbed by a jagged part of it in the head by the killer.
Yeah, it was Skakel.
Yeah, almost.
This
yeah.
is a rich person crime.
The golf club's head was later found near the driveway. Moxley's pants and underwear were pulled down to her ankles, but no evidence of sexual assault was ever discovered. At the time, the community assumed the crime could have only been perpetrated by someone outside of the gates. No one in the gates would ever do this.
Oh, they used the cheapest 6-iron.
But the golf club was quickly determined to belong to the Skakel household.
Shock.
Yeah, right?
What?
Authorities
No.
questioned both Thomas and 15-year-old Michael Skakel, who had...
Next year you'll tell me that the Skakels were found with blood on the little sweaters they tie around their shoulders.
Almost certainly they were. Authorities questioned both Thomas and 15-year-old Michael Skakel, who both had unmatching and inconsistent alibis. And they also tried to throw in their tutor under the bus. There was this guy who tutored them, and Thomas was like, "Well, I was watching The French Connection with my tutor, but then he disappeared for a while, so perhaps it was him who had committed the crime." And this guy later did an interview where he was like, "Yeah, what the fuck? I was tutoring a cousin of the Kennedys because I was like, good money, and the next thing I know, they're like, you killed a 15-year-old." And I was like, whoa, what?
I was doing cocaine in the water snooker lounge. Oh, you've never played water snooker? It's like regular snooker, but in the pool.
Oh, you've never played snooker? Oh my god, how much did you say your father made in a year?
I'm sorry. Our accents are all over the place.
So for years, authorities believed that one of the Skakel boys had definitely committed the crime, but it wouldn't be until 2002. Count those years, Mason. What is that, 30 years later? It wouldn't be until 2002 that Michael Skakel was found guilty. What?
Guilty. Your Honor, I am definitely guilty. Did you say guilty? No.
It wouldn't be until 2002 that Michael Skakel was found guilty of murdering Martha Moxley after years of seemingly just openly bragging about getting away with a crime to close friends. And then later when the sentence came around, like the trial, he was like, I never bragged about it to friends. But then multiple close sources were like, yeah, Michael just straight up was like, I killed Martha Moxley.
Hey, remember when I killed Martha Moxley?
Anyway, we'll get.
Have I told you that? Have I not told you that story?
What?
I killed her. I killed a person.
Michael.
And then I've used money to not go to jail for it.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, at least you were sentenced now, and you will stay in jail, right?
I never told anybody. First off, I want to say that I never told anybody, and second off, no.
I like beer. I still like beer. I liked beer. I still like beer.
Boys will be boys. Beer will be beer. In America. Am I right, ladies and gentlemen? Now.
And now Michael Skakel is part of the Supreme Court. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's a different rich douchebag. Sorry, my bad.
Can you imagine I can't imagine that during this whole thing, though, that he was just lurking around the corner, just like, oh, shit, did Michael kill?
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
so he was.
I'm out of here, future Supreme Court Justice. I don't know if we should say his name or not. I don't know.
I don't give a fuck. It's Brett Kavanaugh, everyone. Fuck that guy.
That's him. I thought we were doing Ruth Bader Ginsburg. What? Who are you?
Oh no!
Who's this Brett Kavanaugh guy? I thought we were doing Ginsburg. I thought we were roasting her.
No. He was sentenced to 20 years, but because of his familial connections, Skakel, which that's not the official reasoning, everyone. It wasn't because of his familial relationships. He was released in 2013 after the judge determined that, quote, Skakel's lawyer failed to adequately represent his client when he was first convicted, but it's because of his familial connections.
Well, as I've looked at this, I've noticed something quite preposterous about the case is a man with that much money shouldn't possibly have been found guilty for this crime. Clearly, his lawyer did not represent him to his highest ability. So, not guilty. I mean, right?
That's an actual audio recording of the case.
Why is everybody looking at me like that? Did I say the quiet part out loud again? I don't understand.
On November 21st, 2013, Skakel was released from prison on a $1.2 million bond, in addition to specific conditions he was assigned following his release. He had to be monitored with a GPS device, could have no contact with the Moxley family, must check in periodically with his parole officer over the phone, and would not be allowed to leave the state of Connecticut unless granted permission.
Unless you ask very nicely.
Here's
you
the thing,
can't
Mason.
leave Connecticut.
He was later granted permission to relocate himself and his family to Westchester County, New York.
Oh, you want to permanently move out of Connecticut? Absolutely.
In 2017, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Michael's cousin, had written and published a book in response to the trials, and it was titled "Framed: Why Michael Skakel Spent Over a Decade in Prison for a Murder He Didn't Commit," which became a New York Times bestseller, detailing how Skakel was wrongfully charged and convicted. And then in 2018, Skakel's murder conviction was vacated by the Connecticut Supreme Court, in which they ruled that because his attorney had failed to call an alibi witness, Skakel was not given a fair trial.
Once again, looking back at this, he has too much money to be guilty.
Honestly, it's crazy.
What are you people not under? If you make enough money, you can't do crime. Crime doesn't affect you. It doesn't. Crimes don't exist for rich people. What? What? Bailiff, what now? You keep giving me this fucking
sir,
look.
No, sir.
What?
No, sir.
What? What are they gonna do? Find me guilty of being a bad judge? I have money.
Hashtag canceled.
They can't.
Hashtag canceled, sir.
Oh. I'm a victim. I am.
Well, anyway, in my unprofessional opinion, all of that is bullshit because he clearly fucking did it.
Well, we are forgetting the very controversial declaration that Kennedy made in the 60s during his presidency that was, my family cannot commit murder.
It's
remember
shitty.
When he said that.
Yeah, I do remember that. It's shitty, too, because they're not even, like, blood related to the Kennedys. They're cousins of the wife of one of the Kennedys. But that's how fucking the influence extends, I guess. Whatever. I liked Kennedy, but I don't like that his family got away with murder.
He wasn't.
Remember when his brother killed that woman?
Nope.
Yeah, and then
when
the
his
brother that
got
lived,
killed.
though. No, I know, but the brother that lived, the one that lived, what was his name? What was his brother's name? The one that lived? Ted Kennedy. Yeah, it's Chappaquiddick. Remember that whole incident at Chappaquiddick where he killed a 28-year-old passenger, Mary Jo? It doesn't matter. I'm not going to get into this. Is a whole episode.
I'd like to know how many people the Kennedys have killed.
A lot, probably.
I mean, we've already come up with 2, and it wasn't very
But it's
hard.
also okay because James Spader was friends with John F. Kennedy Jr., and I kind of like that because he's got some fun stories about the Kennedys.
Elvis was friends with Nixon.
That is true. He wanted to be an FBI agent.
Oh.
That's why he was friends with Nixon. He said, "Hey there, Mr. President. I would love it if you gave me a badge."
That's my impression
That's
of
your
Nixon,
impression of
because he's
Nixon.
like Palpatine. He
Yeah,
was
he's-
like,
I am not a crook. Remember when he said that? Yeah.
I didn't want to go too hacky with it, so
Yeah.
I went with,
Anyway, bullshit, right? The rich just get away with crimes. And again, we will flip-flop for a large amount of money. When the Kennedy family pays us a substantial amount of money, I will come back to this case and say, I don't think he did it.
Exactly. Now, if you'll excuse me, we have a word from our sponsor. Brett Kavanaugh never raped anybody.
Oh, no.
Brett Kavanaugh, great guy, number 1. Likes beer. Who doesn't like beer? Still likes beer, huh?
I loved beer. Still
Brett
like beer.
Kavanaugh, number 1 guy.
Remember that time Brett Kavanaugh cried about working out with his buddy's dad or something during the trial?
He's a fucking psychopath. What
He
a
fucking
crazy
sucks. I
fucking
hate
person.
him. Yeah, fuck that.
just
I remember
know
a
he was-
kid from Penn. I will bleep his name out.
Oh, I
when
knew
it was
exactly
happening.
who it was.
When it was
Yeah, I knew
happening,
who it
because
was,
Brett's
yeah.
a very religious man, right? When it was happening, he was like, "Well, I just don't understand." He tried to defend him once, and because it was when Wagner was still around.
I think I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, we were all in CRI, and I was just like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Get fucked! Like, shut
Well,
up."
I mean, maybe she was just trying to ruin a good man's reputation.
That's basically what he was saying.
Yeah, I know. That's their
And
favorite.
I was
that
like,
was their favorite talking point.
wow.
It was like,
And he was like, "Well, he's a fellow
every
Catholic,"
time
and I was like, "I don't give a
powerful
fuck that he's a."
man does a thing, a woman's got to be there to be like, man, you raped me. I mean, get over it.
Every
You're
time a powerful
welcome.
man rapes a woman, she's gonna come out years later when he's all of a sudden gonna get a position of power that could affect the lives of millions of women to be like, hey, this guy's bad. Like, what's up with that?
I love how you just channeled Ben Shapiro in order to do that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Let's
that
say
was good.
hypothetically, for the sake of the argument. On a rainy Halloween night in 1974,
I'm sorry, what night was this?
Halloween night.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's much different from Halloween night of the last case.
And Halloween night from the one before that.
Yeah. The children of Deer Park, Texas were out trick-or-treating, and one parent was out too. Actually, a lot of parents, but one
I would hope
specific
there
parent.
were more than one, but yeah.
Ronald O'Brien was watching his children, 8-year-old Timothy and 5-year-old Elizabeth, as they went house to house. Joining them was O'Brien's neighbor, Jim Bates, and his young son. One of the houses the group approached had all its lights switched off, but the kids banged on the door anyway, with the vague promise of candy being too enticing. But there was no answer. The children ran off to the next house, joined by Jim, and Ronald was left behind alone. Ronald caught up to the group later with good news. Holding a handful of 21-inch pixie sticks, he told the group that someone had come to the door and given him the candy. The sweets were handed out, one to each of the children there.
Yeah. Sorry, I just got winded from running up. They gave us all these pixie sticks for sure. Oh, my hands are wet. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay.
Definitely nothing suspicious happened. Whew, I'm out of shape from all the... Oh, my hands are just... I got jelly on them. Here's a pixie stick for you, pixie stick for you. Okay, nothing weird happened. Let's move on.
The sweets were handed out, one each to the children there, one for Jim's other child, and another to a 10-year-old boy Ronald had recognized from church as the group walked home.
Hey, you're
Before
from church,
bed-
right? Have a pixie stick. Don't tell anybody you saw me tonight. All right. Whew, I am my heart is just... It's going, you know? Whew, ha-ha. Must be all the pixie sticks.
Before bed, Timothy asked his dad if he could have at least one candy. His dad said sure and handed him the pixie stick. The boy tasted it but complained that it was bitter. Ronald then grabbed a glass of Kool-Aid and gave it to his son to wash down the bitter taste.
Oh, is it really bitter, huh? Oh, here, have this. Yeah, this isn't going to be any bitter. Does it taste like almonds? No, it doesn't taste like almonds. Drink it.
The boy...
Crazy night, right? Nothing suspicious about it.
The boy went to sleep, but soon was awoken by a devastating pain in his stomach. He complained to his father and was rushed to the hospital, but was soon after pronounced dead. This is the former Harris County prosecutor Mike Hinton talking about it decades later. Do you want to go ahead, Mason?
It was just a coincidence that I was working the police intake that night.
And then
I got a call from the Pasadena Police Department. They told me an 8-year-old boy had died. He was rushed to the hospital, but he'd already passed.
Hinton called Dr. Joseph A. Yakimzik, chief medical examiner of nearby Harris County, and said,
I told him the situation, and he asked what the young man's breath smelled like. And it's
then-
not funny.
It's not
Jose.
funny, but it
It's
kinda
not
seems
funny,
like-
But the way to be like, I don't know, good point. Not
"Ugh."
good.
Yeah, smells like death. So a call to the morgue revealed that there was a scent of almond coming from the boy's mouth, and Yakimzik said, it's cyanide. An autopsy proved the medical examiner's hunch. Oh, sorry, the pod dog
Jesus
just
Christ.
went.
I don't like that's happening in the dark.
Get out of here. Go. An autopsy proved the medical examiner's hunch. A pathologist said Timothy had consumed enough cyanide to kill 2 people. Tests later found that the top 2 inches of the pixie stick had been packed with the poison. Police officers managed to recover the remaining sweets from the other children before any of them had a chance to dig in. They noted that whoever was responsible had used staples to seal the pixie stick after tampering with them.
That's what saved another boy's life that night. They found him in bed with the sweet in his hand, but he wasn't strong enough to undo the staples. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
You should have just opened the other end.
Yeah, right? Stupid kid. The police.
I'm just saying, I would have gotten that pixie stick.
I would have, one way or another. The police took Ronald back to the neighborhood the group had been trick-or-treating in so that he could direct them to the house where he picked up the pixie stick. But he was stumped. He just couldn't find the house and said he'd never seen the face of the person responsible that had just emerged from a doorway and handed him the candy. I like that in Ronald's retelling of what happened, a figure just came out of the dark and went, and gave him pixie sticks.
I do that on Halloween, though. I get a bunch of
well.
pixie sticks, but I shove them up my sleeve, and then I go, and I flick it out of my sleeve, and I slide out of the darkness. I just go like,
yeah, you're the kid that, or you're the man that kids tell scary stories around the fire about.
Pixie sticks, and I drag it up and down their face and their cheeks and like kind of put it in their mouth a little bit, and I'm like, oh, you want to give someone just pixie stick? And then I go, over there! And then when they all turn away, I vanish back into the darkness, leaving nothing but the pixie sticks inside their mouths.
I saw a really, this has nothing to do with what you just said.
Cool.
I'm just going to try to ignore it.
You're gonna be in bed tonight, and you're just gonna feel like a little drag across your face, and hear pixie stick. But you're gonna wake up, and then I'm not gonna be there.
Investigators started to become suspicious, but after a few days went by, the police became frustrated, and they were firm with O'Brien and took him out again. His memory was jogged, and he pointed them to the house. The man who lived there wasn't home, so officers went to his place of work, Houston's William Hobby P. Airport, and arrested him in front of his colleagues. The mystery was over, case closed. But the man had an alibi. He had been working that night, and his wife and daughter had turned in early after running out of candy. But it was soon discovered that O'Brien had taken out a large life insurance policy on both of his children, and had called his insurers to ask about the payout at 9 a.m. the morning after Timothy's death. Granted a warrant, a search of the Bryan house was conducted, which came up with a pair of scissors with plastic residue attached, which was similar to that found on the cyanide-laced sweets. O'Brien was arrested and taken in for questioning. Ronald entered a not guilty plea with his defense blaming the tainted candy on some untraceable boogeyman, a sick individual using the cover of Halloween to poison unsuspecting children, but friends, family, and coworkers all testified against the man the press was now calling the Candyman.
Hey, you're not gonna tell people about me trying to kill my children, are you?
What? I did not know that you were trying to do that. What?
No, I didn't. I was just making sure that you won't tell anybody that I did, but I didn't. I'm just saying, like, in case someone asks, you'll say no, right?
Well, now I'm going to, because it seems like you
now
killed your children.
No?
Yeah, no, I'm going to say yes.
Why? Why?
What, you just told me you were trying to kill your children.
I was an usher at your wedding.
Okay.
So why would you fuck me like that?
You just admitted the crime.
I said if someone asks you.
Okay.
Duh. Do you not speak English? I said if. Stupid.
Okay.
I said if. Did you
try
Learn to listen. Open your fucking ears, dummy. God, this is why I killed my kids. No.
Whoa.
Wait. No, you didn't listen. No.
Yeah, thank you. So on June 3rd, 1975, it took just 46 minutes for a jury to return a guilty verdict for one charge of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. An hour later...
So, guilty. Wait. If we make this last 30 minutes, they have to give us lunch. Oh, sick. Cool, yeah, okay.
That's an audio recording from the jury room.
Let's talk about this for a little bit.
Hey, have you guys seen that... What came out in 75? I was going to say Star Wars, but that was 77. Hey, you guys seen that new Rocky Horror Picture Show?
I didn't, because I'm pretty sure that had a very small release.
Well, I did. I caught it. And it's not because I'm really into that specific type of movie.
I like the part where he's like, I see
woman.
You shiver with anticipation.
I thought you said you didn't see it.
I'm a different guy.
Oh, but you saw it.
6 jurors.
This is what they talked about for 30 minutes, was whether or not people had seen Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Honestly, I'm going to be honest, that burrito truck, pretty good.
Anyway, so this guy's fucking guilty, right?
I'm glad we waited, right?
So this guy's fucking
for
guilty.
Sure.
Oh, speaking of burritos, I just had a delicious... Maybe that's what I'll do after this. I'm going to go get one of those burritos. I had a delicious burrito from this place called Big Burrito. If you're ever in the...
Is this worth what you're doing right now?
No, this is just for me and you.
I know. That's why I'm asking you. Like,
Yeah, it's pretty
worth
it.
Okay.
It was really good. That's how
Okay.
good it fucking was.
Okay.
It ran right through me, though.
I'll never eat this burrito. You know that, right?
If you ever come visit, you can.
Fair enough.
But it ran right through me, Mason. As soon as I got home, I had to shit.
That's
But
upsetting.
it was worth it. It was really worth it.
All right, let's move on.
An hour later, it was decided... So anyway, yeah, so he was found guilty. An hour later, it was decided that Ronald would be executed by electric chair. The Candyman would actually not be executed until 1984, when the electric chair had become considered inhumane by the libs on the Supreme Court, and he was instead executed by lethal injection.
I think two things. First off, I think that if you get sentenced to death, you should be able to pick your own execution.
Mm-hmm. Firing squad, that's what I'm doing.
Firing squad's a really good one. I was gonna say firing
With a little
squad.
cigarette in my mouth?
Yeah, the cigarette and the blindfold.
Mm-hmm.
A firing squad's really good. Or honestly, cyanide pixie stick, not bad.
Yeah. I think that's, for some of them, they should kill them the way that they killed people. But only if they killed people in a creative way. Like the pixie stick one, you know what I mean? Like a pixie stick killing, you die by pixie stick killing.
And so after being found guilty of all 10 murders, Mr. Bundy, next is the question of, were you creative enough to get killed the way you killed your victims? On a count of 6 to 4, your brain will be bashed in by a large stick. Congratulations, Mr. Bundy. You were creative enough to get killed the same way you killed people.
Thank you? I don't...
Yeah. It's going up your butt, too. Does that worry you? Yeah, you shouldn't have done it then, huh?
Yeah. And then they all go, shame, shame, and then they all point at him. They should add that too into court cases. Anyway, they should add in the shame procession of shame from What We Do in the Shadows. Shame, shame. Remember they all do that outside?
I just thought you were talking about from Game of Thrones where they follow her through the streets.
Oh, do they
with
do
the
that?
Bell. Yeah, they follow her through the streets going shame, ding.
Yeah,
shame.
also that's good too. Anyway, in the quiet city of Armstrong, British Columbia, 18-year-old Taylor Van... Shout out to our British Columbia listener. Woo!
Hey, what's up, Taylor? I'm glad you're listening.
Oh, no.
That was the person, right?
No.
Oh, no.
18-year-old...
He's the murderer.
No.
Shit.
18-year-old Taylor Van Diest left her house dressed as a zombie. She was excited to meet up with her pals to go trick-or-treating one last time before they were too old. I did this when I was 18. I went trick-or-treating with some friends. I was like, let's do it.
In Iowa,
it was the lamest thing I ever did.
In Iowa, it's 12.
Oh.
Cheyenne was bizarre. Thought that was the weirdest shit, but it was 12 when.
Yeah, I did it up until I was 18.
Done.
And then
I wish I would have.
And then I came home and I had to be fair, we went to like a really rich neighborhood and we got like a really good amount of candy. But then I was like, I came home that night and I went, yeah, I should have been out partying and drinking with other teenagers my age. And then I cried for a long while. Anyway, I should cut that part out.
Candy.
I did have candy. Some really good King Size bars. Just eating a Crunch bar. My mom's like, "Hey, you still crying in there, you bitch?" And then I cry harder. Anyway,
your mom opens the door and is like, "Here, it's the only kiss you're gonna get tonight," and throws a Hershey kiss at you.
She would.
Like,
She was the type to say that to me. Yeah.
Mom, no.
Taylor stopped responding to text messages just after 10 minutes into her short walk to her friend's home. As soon as she was presumed missing, a search ensued. She was found badly beaten and clinging to life 2 hours later by friends and family along a quiet stretch of train tracks. The young girl died in the hospital the next morning. It would take good forensic DNA evidence to bring her killer to justice. 28-year-old Matthew Forster was charged with first-degree murder in her death. Forster would admit to authorities that he had strangled Van Diest with his hands and a shoelace before crushing her skull with reported blows from a heavy flashlight as she lay on the ground. He was convicted of first-degree murder in April 2014, but was granted a new trial on appeal because of mistakes by the trial judge. He then pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. On June 4th, 2018, Forster was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 17 years. Fucking that one just sucked. Actually, the next little bit all just suck.
Well,
the
it's
fun
weird
ones are
because
done, Mason.
People have died in all of these, but you did do a good job of making them get worse as they go.
Yep, they're getting. Oh, just wait.
I mean, like, I was just like, I'm going to go do everything but talk about the 8-year-old that got poisoned in that last one. And now this one, I was just like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah, okay.
They're only getting progressively worse from here.
A flashlight, huh?
Yeah. The thing is, I feel like I know what type of flashlight. It's like those cop flashlights.
Yeah.
I have one in the back of my car.
Yeah.
For reasons.
I'm sorry,
No,
what?
fuck. Damn.
How many shoelaces do you have in the back of your car?
3. Wait, what's a weird amount to have? No,
Honestly, there's no amount that's weird, but the way you answered it told a lot.
Do you remember when we shot that short film in the abandoned college?
Yes.
And I had for like a week because we were doing that. No, never mind. It wasn't for that. It was for no, it was for that because I bought the gloves for that. So for like a week while we were shooting that, I had a bunch of black gloves, that heavy flashlight, and like rope that I had bought for that as well in the back of my trunk, and I think a mask too. And I was like, if I get pulled over, I am going to jail. Like because I'm a brown man in the Midwest. Like I will get no trial, just straight to jail.
I've worn those around in public, and the cops have been like, "Nice."
They high-fived you too.
I was like,
huh?
"Hi," yeah. They were like, "What's up?"
And you were going like, "Oh, I was like, machete."
Yeah, I was like, "Hey, touch this handle. Get your DNA all over this." That cop's in jail now.
Wow.
I don't know why. Something about a murder. I don't know.
Hang on. What?
You're looking at me like you think I murdered somebody and then used a cop to touch the evidence to frame that cop, and now that cop's in jail. And I got away with murder, but I didn't do that, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Okay.
I like how we're wearing the same flannel today.
Yeah. And we all both also were involved in strange occurrences where somebody else was found guilty of a murder that we definitely were not involved in.
We definitely don't have a blood pact to take that secret to our grave.
Yeah. So the next
one,
when
like sometimes best friends see each other's wieners and they never tell anybody about that. It's like we've got one of those things, except that we didn't see each other's wiener. We murdered a person together.
That's very fun for us. I like that.
We saw a dead person's wiener. Oh, now I said a gender. Uh-oh.
No. Catch the next 5 episodes of Captain's Log before we're both locked up and then we have to do it from prison.
Next episode of Captain's Log, Inside the Mind of a Murderer. The one after that, Inside the Mind of another murderer. A different murderer.
On Halloween night, 1982, 17-year-old Maria Ciallellia asked her dad for some money around 6:30 p.m. and said she would be back later that night. She left wearing her white fur jacket, beige slacks, a denim vest, and tinted glasses.
That's a lot of things that doesn't seem like they go together.
Yeah, I don't.
Does
it
the
was
jacket? Does the denim
1982?
Vest,
so
does the denim vest go over a fur jacket or under
the fur jacket?
But like, what?
And then
was she
beige
wearing a
slacks
shirt
and tinted glasses.
But like, was she wearing a shirt? Or
I'm
was
assuming
it a
she
raw
was.
denim vest.
I hope not. That wouldn't feel good on your nipples. I feel like.
God, that'd be so chafy.
Unless she's wearing a bra. Nice. I don't know.
Unless she was wearing a little jacket that was like zipped up and then the vest over that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the 80s.
White fur and beige doesn't seem like they'd go together.
No. Or, beige. No. Anyway, around 12:20 that night, she was spotted walking towards her house by a Point Pleasant patrolman. He had been answering a call at the time and came back less than 10 minutes later to give her a ride home. He later talked about how he saw her driving down and was like, man, why is she walking down the street alone? And then he's like, and then he went and did a thing, and then he was like, I should go back and give that girl a ride.
Do you think when he drove back, he was like, she's gone? What if she's a ghost?
Yeah, probably. But anyway, yeah, he came back and she was gone, and he couldn't find her anywhere on the stretch of road, which he thought was odd. Anyway, flash forward to April of 1983. Authorities would dig up the property belonging to the mother of the thrill killer, Richard Bagenwald, and find
Bainwald?
Bainwald, yeah.
It seems like the G is silent, but I don't know for sure.
And they would find 2 bodies, one of which belonged to Maria Ciallellia. Maria's cause of death was gunshot wounds to the head, and after she was killed, her body was cut into 3 large sections and placed in trash bags before being buried.
So she kind of was a ghost when he came back.
No, she was picked up by the thrill killer and then murdered.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. What wasn't... Oh, by the time he came back, I guess she was a ghost. You're right, yeah. Because she was dead. What wasn't in the bags were Maria's clothes and personal effects. It's unknown if the killer disposed of them separately or kept them as trophies. In 1983, Bagenwald was taken off...
I think it's Bainwald.
Bainwald was taken off the streets for good. He was given the death sentence for 4 murders, and later they would be commuted to life in prison. He died on March 10th, 2008.
Yay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Because he's dead is why I was cheering.
Yeah. The next murder occurred in Mason's own backyard. 69-year-old Marvin Brandland and his wife Ethel had spent the night handing out candy to trick-or-treaters. I forgot to put it in here, but they lived in Fort Dodge, Iowa. That's why.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I was like, in Oski? I was like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, just like actually in your backyard. They just owned the house before your parents.
I would like if maybe I ever do go to trial for murder, they play that clip, and there's just a little moment where you say in Mason's backyard, and I'm like, you know what I mean, like really quick, and then as I realize you're making a joke, I like slowly sink back into like a normal look, but there's like just an instant of like, what the fuck, and then
the prosecutor's
just,
like this.
I had a gun out real quick, and then you were like, and then I just slowly put it away.
They had heard a knock at the door and opened to find a man wearing a sack with eye holes cut out of it. He then said,
"Trick or treat, give me your money or I'll shoot."
Ethel...
Which, honestly, that's kind of a fun way to rob people. You shouldn't murder people, but that's a fun robbery kind
Ethel
of thing.
Playfully tried to lift the pillowcase thinking it was a joke, but the person held it down tightly. Both of these people just thought they were getting pranked, and I feel bad because one of them was murdered, but it also is like, holy fuck, the balls on these people to be like, you're playing a joke, ain't ya?
Oh, you're so cute. Because he's got like a loaded gun pointed at you. Because he's like trying to take the gun, like, let me see it. No, it's so cute. Take a picture of me and the robber.
Doing the Jonah Hill thing from
bang.
From what is it? This Is the End.
Yeah,
bang, bang. Oh,
that's my favorite.
He then so when Ethel turned around and headed inside for the candy, the hooded person followed her inside. He then produced a handgun.
Okay, now, fella, it's a little game's over. Okay, don't come into our house.
He then produced a handgun and pointed it at the couple.
Oh, you got me.
All right,
what
gonna
do you
shoot
want?
us?
I'll tell you what. I think we got a Mars bars left. So
with your name on it, Mr. Scary Gunman.
Oh, Mr. Spooky, Mr. Zodiac. Oh, there you go.
He then ordered them to empty the safe in the basement. Marvin Brandland.
Sorry, the what? You've heard about a
How do you know about
basement, huh? All right, fella. This game is getting a little spooky, I'll be honest.
Marvin Brandland was not wealthy, but he did have a safe in the basement that only a select few family members knew about. When they reached the kitchen, Marvin refused to go any further with what he believed was a joke.
Now, wait just a second now. We've offered you dinner. All right, we
sat down for
house.
dinner with you. We watched an episode of Gilligan's Island.
I rushed it off when you brought up the secret safe that nobody else knows about. But I draw the line at you actually going to look at it. Now I'm going to have to ask you, please, leave. All right, you can stay for Wheel of Fortune, but after Wheel of Fortune. You really twisted my arm.
So he believed this was a joke, and he reached for the gun, and the hooded figure shot him in the throat. He then took he died.
All right, this is getting a little far.
If the family of Marvin Brandland is listening, whoops.
I'm so
He then
sorry.
took the mask off and threw it on the ground and left the home. Ethel did see the man's face, but did not recognize him and thus could never identify the man.
Also, bad crime committing.
It's so weird that he's like, bang, okay, now look at my face. And then he leaves.
You know what? I don't even want to do this anymore. He just takes it off and just drops it and sulks out.
The family would later come to believe, years later, that a familial acquaintance had committed the crime. after again, he went around bragging about doing it extensively. But no DNA evidence on the mask ever officially tied him to the case, and thus to this day it remains unsolved.
You know, have I ever told you, what's your name? Your name's Ethel, right? You know, I once broke in and murdered the husband of a woman named Ethel.
Oh,
Wait, are you single?
yes.
Oh. Small, small world.
Anyway, here's some pecan pie I brought by.
Thank you.
Okay, so this next one, it's a doozy, Mason, and listeners. It's really fucked up, and I actually read the transcript of this killing because it was recorded, and it really fucked me up. It's probably the one case that I've covered so far that really made me go, I don't even want to do it, but we're going to. I'm not going to include the transcript. You can look it up on your own. I wouldn't recommend it. It's really fucking horrifying. Anyway, let's get into it. So, of course, on Halloween night in 1979, 16-year-old Shirley Ledford, who lived pretty much down the road from me in Burbank, California, would choose to hitchhike home after attending a party. Two men in a van pulled over and offered to take her home. These two men were Roy Norris and Lawrence Bittaker, also known as the Toolbox Killers, and Shirley would be their final victim.
Okay, I read that as the Toy Box Killers, and I was very confused. But okay,
No, not to be confused with the Toy Box Killers.
that's a different thing. Well,
Yeah.
they were in New Mexico, but anyway, they had a very similar MO. Okay,
Upon accepting the offer of a lift home and entering the van, Ledford was offered marijuana by Norris, which she refused. Bittaker drove the van to a secluded street where Norris drew a knife, then bound and gagged Ledford with construction tape. Bittaker then traded places with Norris, who drove in an aimless manner for an excess of an hour as Bittaker remained with Ledford in the back of the van. After removing the construction tape from the girl's mouth and legs, Bittaker tormented Ledford, initially slapping and mocking her, then beating her with his fists as he reportedly shouted for her to say something. Then as Shirley Ledford began screaming, shouting for her to scream louder, as Ledford continued screaming, Bittaker began to ask her as he struck her, "What's the matter? Don't you like to scream?" As Shirley Ledford began to cry, she pleaded with Bittaker, saying, "No, don't touch me." In response, Bittaker again ordered her to scream as loud as she wished, then began alternatively striking her with a hammer, beating her breast with his fist, and torturing her with pliers, both between and throughout instances when he sexually assaulted and sodomized her. Reportedly, Ledford can be heard pleading for the abuse to cease and making statements such as, "Oh no, no," as sounds of Bittaker alternatively extracting either the sledgehammer or the pliers from the toolbox can be heard on a tape recorder he had switched on after entering the rear of the van. Norris later described hearing screams, constant screams, emitting from the rear of the van as he drove. Shortly after Norris switched places with Bittaker, he himself switched on the tape recorder, which Bittaker had used to record much of the time he had been in the rear of the van with Ledford. Norris first shouted for Ledford to go ahead and scream or I'll make you scream. In response, Ledford pleaded, "I'll scream if you stop hitting me." Then emitted several high-pitched screams as Norris encouraged her to continue until he ordered her to stop. Norris then reached for the sledgehammer as Shirley Ledford, seeing him do this, screamed, "Oh no." Norris then struck Ledford once upon the left elbow. In response, she informed Norris he had broken her elbow before pleading, "Don't hit me again." In response, Norris raised the sledgehammer as Ledford repeatedly screamed, "No." Norris then proceeded to strike Ledford 25 consecutive times upon the same elbow with the sledgehammer, before asking her, "What are you sniveling about?" As Ledford continuously screamed and wept, after approximately 2 hours of captivity, Norris killed Ledford by strangling her with a wire coat hanger, which he tightened with pliers. Ledford did not react much to the strangulation, although she died with her eyes open. Bittaker then opted to discard her body upon a random lawn in order to view the reaction from the press. The pair drove to a randomly selected house in Sunland and discarded Ledford's body in a bed of ivy upon the front lawn. They also staged her with her legs spread and her arms spread. Shirley Lynette Ledford's body was found by a jogger the following morning. An autopsy revealed that in addition to having been sexually violated, she had died of strangulation after receiving extensive blunt force trauma to the face, head, breast, and left elbow, with her olecranon, sustaining multiple fractures. Her genitalia and rectum had been torn, caused in part by Bittaker having inserted pliers inside her body. In addition, her left hand bore a puncture wound and a finger on her right hand had been slashed. The last words that Shirley Ledford would speak at the end of her short 16 years of life were, "Do it, just kill me." And that's like all you hear right before the tape ends. And they said, I think during the trial, the prosecution said that she didn't react to the strangulation because she had just been so severely beaten and tortured that at this point she couldn't even feel that. It's insane. And that's probably the scariest murder that has ever been committed on Halloween night.
Yuck.
Yeah, again, the transcript is, I don't even recommend that anyone go listen to it, or you can't listen to it, but can go read it. It's horrifying. This poor girl suffered immensely. And then these two guys were fucking complete human filth. I think one of them got off with a lighter sentence. I think it was Norris that turned on Bittaker and told them most of the things that they did, so he didn't get as badly of a sentence. But I think they're both dead at this point. Maybe they're not, but fuck those guys.
Cool.
Anyway, here's a bit of a palate cleanser. Maybe not entirely, because this one's also a murder. It's not as bad, though. Our final one, Mason, is a bit of a throwback. Halloween night, 2002, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. A group of college friends from the University of Minnesota dressed up and went out to celebrate. They were at the Lone Tree Bar and Grill when one member of the group got separated, Chris Jenkins. The story goes that sometime after midnight, Chris spilled a drink on his pants by accident. But the security team thought he was so intoxicated that he urinated on himself. So,
honestly, this seems like the type of thing where if Chris is the one who died, they were like, listen, we can at least tell people that he didn't piss himself.
Yeah,
You know?
but they didn't do that. So they removed him from the bar. After the bouncer was told not to let him back in, Chris was thrown outside, and he had been wearing a Native American Halloween costume without pockets and had just been kicked out without his coat in the 20-degree temperature. I know it was, 2002, but come on, Native American culture is not a Halloween costume. Anyway.
I mean, I think if it makes you feel any better, apparently it's harder to find a white man who hasn't done some sort of minstrel-esque painted face than it is to find one who has, or hasn't, so.
True. You haven't, right?
No.
Okay, good.
I was a pirate.
See, I have a buddy who did brown face. Anyway, that's a whole thing. As a kid, and the school just allowed him. It went through multiple adults. Anyway.
We had, my school, obviously, my mascot is the Indians. It's not great.
Mm-hmm.
I had one of a close friend of mine ride our homecoming float our senior year dressed in full Native American regalia, not traditional, like a store-bought Halloween costume, with his foot up on the bow of a parade boat, as recreating the painting of George Washington crossing the Delaware. Dressed as a Native American.
Very
and I
fun.
remember at the time not being in the homecoming parade, being like, this seems uncool.
Right. Yeah. Very fun. So,
yeah.
Chris had given his cell phone and wallet to his girlfriend, Ashley Rice, who was still inside. So now Chris found himself outside in the freezing temperatures without any means of getting home, since another friend had driven him to the bar. The last anyone reported seeing Chris was that he was walking from the bar heading north, but when he never showed up back at his place or contacted anyone, he was reported missing. 4 months later, a body was discovered floating in the Mississippi River. After being pulled out, it was discovered that the body was that of Chris Jenkins, still in his costume from Halloween. Thus, it was determined that he had died that night. At first, his death was ruled a suicide or accidental, but years later, it was determined to have been a homicide, with many speculating that Chris had fallen victim to the Smiley face killer. And honestly, Chris's death is the one that gives the most validity to the serial killer theory. Do you remember talking about the smiley face killings?
Yes, I remember talking about they just found dead bodies next to bridges with smiley faces.
Yeah, so yeah, if you're not aware of the smiley face killings, here's a quick recap. Basically, in the early 2000s to mid or maybe just beginning 2010s, a string of college-aged men disappeared, went missing in the Midwest, and were then found intoxicated, dead in bodies of water, which is a thing that can just happen. People can just be drunk and fall into water, right?
I can swim.
The reason
I can swim that. I could probably swim that.
Exactly, is what most of them probably said beforehand. But the theory...
the amount of times I've said, I can swim that while drunk in the Midwest, every time I've been drunk, I'm like, I can swim that.
So the theory is that these men were all their deaths are connected because there's a lot of similarities between them, aside from just the manner of which they were found dead and their ages and the areas and the situations that they were in. But a lot of them are found in bodies of water in poses that wouldn't be that of a person who had fallen in and had struggled. For instance, Chris was found when he was found dead. His hands were on his chest like this, like an X format, which made many people believe that he had rigor mortis set in before. He had rigor mortis set in before he was thrown in. Also, the fact that his clothes was not ruffled at all, as they would be as someone who had struggled from drowning. Like his shirt was still tucked into his pants and his moccasins were still on, which made people think that he was taken to a second location before he was dumped in the body.
What was he wearing as a shirt?
I don't know, I think he was doing like that Native American with like a shirt.
Nubuck vest?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so like stuff like that, and then of course all of them were found. The main thing pushing this smiley face killing is that all of where the bodies were found in or around the area was a smiley face, which is the most common graffiti ever. But this theory perpetrates that it's left by the killers. The thing that is interesting about Chris Jenkins' murder is that there's a lot of things that came out that don't add up about his death. For instance, his family would hire a private investigator, and then discrepancies would show up on the official report made to police. So, for instance, the private investigator started with retracing Chris's steps that Halloween night, which took him to the Lone Tree Bar and Grill, where suspiciously now all the staff said that Chris left on his own, not that he was kicked out. Then the owner issued a gag order so his employees could not speak to anyone without a company attorney present.
Well, to be fair, though, that sounds like they probably knew that they were probably liable for kicking
out
a
man.
that's, you know what I mean?
That doesn't really connect to that. But the night of Halloween, an off-duty police officer, these are all just discrepancies, not necessarily backing up the smiley face killing. For instance, this one, the night of Halloween, an off-duty police officer named Mike Casey was in the bar. He was working security in the area. He knew Ashley, Chris's girlfriend, and he had actually loaned her one of his uniform shirts for her Halloween costume of a sexy police officer. During the night, she introduced Chris to Mike.
This was a group of basic-ass kids.
Yeah. And this one is fun because it just shows police negligence and police letting other police get away with shit. A rumor going around at the time was that Mike Casey had told the security supervisor at the bar to have Chris removed because he wanted Chris out of the picture that night so that he could flirt with Ashley. And then later, after Chris was gone, he gave Ashley a ride home. Here's the fun part, Mason. The Minneapolis Police Department never questioned Mike Casey formally. When asked why Casey wasn't questioned, even though he had driven the victim's girlfriend home and might know valuable information, they said, quote, "He's a married man with children. We don't want to break up a family." Isn't that something?
Being a cop is like being in a gang, except it's government sanctioned.
Yeah. So then, retracing Chris's steps, the private investigator realized that the route home for Chris would have taken him over the Hennepin Avenue Bridge, and he found that the Federal Reserve Bank had 2 outside cameras facing the other direction. But when the bank reviewed the footage, there was no sign of Chris, so he had not started to walk home. The family knew they needed to try and find out where Chris went if they were ever going to find out what happened to Chris, and so they hired a canine unit, and 2 different bloodhounds tracked Chris's scent from the Lone Tree Bar to a restaurant across from the bar, Times Square Pizza and Subs. From there, the bloodhounds each traced Chris's scent further to an underground parking garage next to the pizza shop.
That they just didn't want subs?
Maybe. The scent came to a stop around the parking stalls number 89 and 90, and on Halloween night, the bouncer from the Lone Tree Bar and Grill had been parking in one of those spots. The bloodhounds also found a hint of Chris on the vehicle that had been parked there that night. With a possible scene to investigate, a search for evidence began. The private investigators would recover blood droplets, a red feather fragment, and a red string that could be parts of the headband Chris had been wearing that night. The private investigator started looking more closely at the movement around the pizza shop and garage the night of Halloween. Several people had seen a group of 10 or more attacking someone in front of Times Square Pizza and Subs that night, but no one was sure if it had been Chris. And then from the pathologist report, it is known that Chris's blood alcohol, and this is what adds to the smiley face killing theory, this one right here. It is known that Chris's blood alcohol level was 0.12%, so he was not out of it drunk. But tests also showed traces of the chemical GHB in his system, which is used to sedate people and is referred to as a date rape drug. And reportedly in a lot of the, I'm doing quotations here, smiley face killings, this drug is found in the system of the victims.
Wait, 0.12 is pretty high.
So the legal is 0.8, 0.08.
08, yeah.
Is after that you cannot drive legally.
Right.
But I think also 0.8 can come from 2 drinks. So I'm assuming that that 0.12 is drunk, but not incoherently drunk.
That's like most Friday night drunk.
Yeah, probably.
Cool.
But the biggest thing is finding the date rape drug in his blood.
Sure.
Yeah. So then the other inconsistency is a thing about the rigor mortis, where he was found in like a not like he had struggled at all, like he was just dumped in after have died.
Like he was cold and like doing this because he was cold.
Maybe. And then one of the biggest things was a hydrologist studied the Mississippi River. He didn't believe that Chris's body could have been in the water for 4 months and not have been spotted, mainly because the area under the 3rd Avenue Bridge where Chris's body was found had been combed for weeks after he disappeared. And one of the biggest things was like, well, his body was thrown in and then it froze, and that's why we didn't find him until February. But the river doesn't freeze over until January, so his body would have washed down and have been found.
Did they try putting a body in the river to see what happened to it?
Yes. They killed another guy to do it, too.
Well, they don't have to do that. They could
they did it, though.
Sandbag.
They did it, though.
Well, they shouldn't have.
Anyway, whether or not I believe the smiley face killing theory, I think it's a very interesting theory, and I wonder if maybe one day we'll be proven. I think last time we dismissed it as not real in our urban legend one, but maybe we'll be proven wrong.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. If you like the show, make sure to leave anyway, with that, it's time to wrap the show up, Mason.
Oh, it's a mummy.
Oh no. If you like this show, make sure to leave a 5-star review, which you can do in-app on Apple Podcast, Audible, or Podchaser. We'd really appreciate it if you leave us a review. Plus, it really helps the show, and we'll read your review on the show. You can support the show by going to patreon.com/captainslogcast and donate $1. Anything helps keep the lights on. Another thing you could do to help the show and yourself is go over to Teepublic and shop our merch. You can get anything from t-shirts to mugs with our logo on it. Remember, if you donate/support our sponsors, it all goes towards improving the show, getting better recording equipment, etc. Mason, where can the fine listeners find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Mason Schrader or on Instagram at Mason Schrader. I don't really post, but maybe I will if I ever feel like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good.
I retweeted a Baltimore Ravens thing yesterday because they were giving away a jersey.
There you go.
So I do stuff sometimes.
There you go. Well, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at j.valle_junior, and the show on Twitter.
Why you would, though.
Aw. And the show on Twitter.
You're not retweeting hot Ravens giveaways.
Maybe I will now.
Oh, shit.
And the show on Twitter and Instagram at Captain's Log Pod. We recommend various different materials on there, post show updates, and post some occasionally funny things. So go check it out. You can also subscribe on YouTube, where you can find me as Jose Valle Jr., Animal Productions, and of course the show's official YouTube channel, Captain's Log. If you can't get enough of me, you can also listen to my other podcast with friend of the log, Max Benyon, called Max and Jose Have Something to Say. Make sure to tell your friends and family about the show if you enjoy it, and if you'd like to share your opinion on these cases, or if you believe in the theory of the smiley face killings, and have some insight to share, please do so by writing in to captainslogcast@gmail.com. I think we may have to just one day fully take a look at the smiley face killings and be the ones to ultimately crack the case, Mason. That'll be our big... you know how like there'll always be that one podcast that's like they solved a cold case or whatever. This will be our thing. Is the smiley face.
It's never guys like us, but I think it would be cool.
It's always like,
well, you're right. We probably could solve it in the sense that like
that this one
it didn't happen.
Right. Yeah. You can also suggest episode topics, guests you'd like to have back, etc. Make sure to subscribe and download on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Play, and any other podcast directory like Amazon Music. We're on Amazon Music now. That's a thing. Thanks to Carlos Rivera for composing our new show's theme. With that, everybody, we have reached the end of our show. We shall see you soon for another spooktacular episode. I've been your captain, Jose Valle Jr., joined by...
First Officer Mason, the smiley face killer.
No!
Just kidding, Schrader.
Oh, okay.
Almost got you.
You did. And this has been Captain's Log. End of transmission.
Beep boop.